Here.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Oh, that's awfully close.
Awfully close?
Let's see, let's pull the table over. Frightening thing, you know. This object here.
Well, probably microphone.
Okay. 5 came out in 1 month, and Howard Hughes had just had his aeroplane accident, remember? And he sent for them, and I went to 20th, where Ben Lyon was head of casting. And didn't I tell you that?
No.
Well, he came out. There was a long waiting on these hard benches. We were sitting out. People of all ages and sizes and everything. He came out. He says, "Who is this girl?" So he said, "I look so fresh and young and I don't know what all." He was very enthusiastic. I mean, he said, "Oh," he says, you had high hopes for me." Well, they made a Technicolor test the following day, which was unusual, but they sort of sneaked it in. All of them got together in the talent department, and they put me under contract, under a stock contract, for a year, and then I was dropped. And then I was hired at Columbia. Then when I was hired back after the Asphalt Jungle, the 20th Century Fox, Zanuck said, "I understand you used to be here." I said, "That's right." "Well, things are quite different now." I said, and he said I had a 3-dimensional quality having to do with sex. He says, quite reminiscent of Harlow. And it was interesting since Ben Lyon had been saying that.
Ben Lyon?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Because, I wanted my mother's maiden name because I felt that rightfully was my name. I couldn't take my father's name very well. So I wanted at least something that was related. So I said, I want the name Monroe, which was my mother's maiden name. And the true things rarely get into circulation. It's usually the false things. Yes, that's what she claimed. But as a friend of my husband says, he was one of our lesser presidents. Truly, I was at the Hollywood Studio Club, although they say that I wasn't. I was. I know. It was me. It happened to. Was I? Was me. Was I. It was all true. I was behind in the rent, and they usually let you get about a week behind in the rent. And since, they write me and they say, "You're the only one who doesn't support this wonderful, wonderful. It's not so wonderful unless you're working and paying your rent." Tom Kelly had asked me, I had done some beer ads for beer for him, and he had asked me to pose nude. Actually, I'd be in a bathing suit or something like that. So he asked me to pose nude, and his wife, Natalie Kelly, she'd be in the dressing room, and I'd be getting dressed and changing. So she said to him, probably, she got to do nudes or something. And then sometimes other photographers, Willinger had asked me, we won't put his name on it, had asked me, and I would say, I don't do, I'm sorry. And one time, Andre Dienes, I went on an interview, and he said, "So you do nudes?" I said, "No, I don't do nudes, never." So I always went around saying never. And then I got so far behind the rent, 4 weeks, and I was in debt and everything. So I called up and I said, "Are you sure they won't recognize?" He said, "I promise." I said, "Well, if it's at night, and you don't have any helpers, you know, to put up the lights. And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm shy, and I don't want to expose myself to, you know, all the people you have. Then I said, and at night. He said, all right, just Natalie and myself. So we did it. And that's all. He just spread out some red velvet and had me lie down on the red velvet. I thought, you know, they'd put some kind of lotion on you or something. Nothing, just, you know. It was very simple and drafty. Calendars? No, they've all been stolen. And I wanted to keep one for my grandchildren. But I can't keep them either. I don't know who takes them. If I get a copy and I pack it away, it'll be gone. Yes, by the time it was known, I had already done the Asphalt Jungle. I was hired at Fox, and I remember they called on the set, the publicity department, and they said something to the effect, did you pose for a calendar? And I said, yes. Anything wrong? There was great anxiety in their voices. Oh, don't say you did. Say you didn't. So I said, but I did. I signed the release, and I did, and I feel I should say it. So I did say that I did, and they were very unhappy about it. And then the cameraman who was working on the film at that time, he got a hold of one, and he asked me if I'd sign it. And so I said, yes, I would. I signed it, and I said, to him, and then his name, and I said, this isn't my best angle. And of course, they got madder, the studio. And they said, but you can't sign those. And I said, but it's me, and they'd rather have these than the other sign. If they're friends, I don't sign for strangers, but they're friends. Or some I said, do you like me better with long hair? Because the hair was down to here, my hair, before I did the Asphalt Jungle. Little by little, I think Fox got used to it.
Ja, du hungrar väl inte bara efter mat?
No, I was really hungry to eat. When you live at the Hollywood Studio Club, you get 2 meals a day. You get breakfast and you get dinner. Of course, it doesn't taste very good, but still you eat. I always supported myself. I was never what you'd call, I don't know, how can I say it? No one else ever supported me in my life. In my older life, like, well, I didn't. I had no family, and I had no place to go just to have a roof over my head. Of course, a lot of people said, well, why didn't you go and get a job in a 10-cent store, something like that? And because I didn't have a high school education, they wouldn't accept me. That's not true. Neither are true. My mother's first husband was named Baker. Her second husband was Mortensen, but she was long since divorced when I was born. So, on my birth certificate, I believe it says profession Baker. So she was just trying to think quickly, I guess, and said Baker. Well, in all my school records, it was Norma Jean Baker. In fact, I was always told, by the way, when I was very young, that my father was killed in an automobile accident in New York before I was born. When I was very young, I was told that. Yes.
As regards your mother, to you she was just a woman with a red hair.
Actually, she was. You see, when I was very young, I called every woman I would see, I'd say, "Oh, there's a mama." And if I would see a man, I'd say, "There's a daddy." Or papa, I guess you say in French. So to learn that she was my mother was quite a shock. You know, it was the woman with the red hair. The people I was staying with, I was about 3, and one morning I was having a bath, actually, and I referred to the woman as Mama, and she said, "I'm not your mother. The one who comes here with the red hair and so forth, she's your mother. Don't call me mother anymore. Call me Aunt so-and-so." But the one I was concerned was her husband. I says, "But he's my daddy." She said, "No. You call him Uncle so-and-so," although they weren't my aunt and uncle. I never lived with my mother. I don't know about the 12 days old, I don't remember, but I know I was very young.
Did you ever see that?
No. I used to ask where my mother was when I don't know, it was about, when I was put in the orphan's home, and I refused to go into the orphan's home. I mean, I said, I saw the orphan, I could read the 10 orphan, and I put my feet down on the sidewalk, and they had to drag me in. I said, "I'm not an orphan." And so, I thought, well, she's dead somewhere, and then later some people said, well, it's better you forget about your mother. I said, "But where's my mother?" And I said, "Well, it's better you forget about her. She's dead." So I was told that. So whatever, invented, I don't know what they mean by it. It was all kind of vague. You know, I couldn't find out anything for sure. I wasn't 8 because when I was 8, I remember where I had, when I had a birthday at 8 years old, and so I would still be 7, and my mother did buy a home, but I didn't see her very often. It was very, the circumstances very unhappy and kind of haphazard. I didn't see her very much. The English couple that I told you, they were the couple. They came to live there in the home, but we only had the home for about, maybe, I don't even think it was 3 months. With the English couple, they used to take me to the Egyptian, where they used to have monkeys in cages outside, and they'd put me there early in the morning, and I'd watch the monkeys. Or else they'd take me to the Grum's Chinese. I tried to fit my foot. My feet prints are there now, but I would try to, but they had these, what do you call those, high vamped.
Ja visst, Gloria Swanson och Mary Pickford.
Yeah, and I never could get my feet in there. My feet were always too big. Every Saturday and Sunday, I was taken there because they worked during the week. They worked very hard, and they didn't want to be bothered with a child around the house, I think. You know, you can't blame them. They were very tired. And so I was taken there in the morning. I'd wait till the movie opened for 10 cents. I would go in, sit in the first row, and I watched all kinds of movies like Cleopatra with Claude Colbert. That I remembered very well. I'd sit there and I'd see it over and over and over and over again till late at night. I was supposed to come out at dark, but of course I didn't know when it was dark, just before dark, because with their conscience they didn't want me to come, at night, but I never knew when it was dark. And besides, it was much nicer there, just seeing the movie over and over and over and over again.
Fick du någonting att äta?
No, it didn't matter. I knew I'd eat when I got home, eat something. let's see, I don't think there was 12, but there were quite a few. Because I was going to stay with these people from New Orleans, and then suddenly I was taken to the orphan's home. Let's see, so counting the orphan's home. You want me to count all of them? I'll try, let's see. 3. You see, some places I was taken there at the end of the school term, and they were planning to keep me, but then after the summer they'd had enough, so, or for whatever reason, and then I was taken to another place, so that's why there's so many. I know I went to 6 different grammar schools. You know, that's before you're in the 7th grade. But I'll try to recall, let's see. I'm to 9 so far, just a second. 9. 10. But I moved back to a place where I had stayed. So that would make 11 different moves, but 10 counting the orphan's home. 10 different places.
Surprising.
Oh, it's such a bright, cheerful place.
According to McCall.
I guess it is now. They've made a lot of improvements. I used to sit up in the window and cry because I'd look over and I'd see RKO, and I knew my mother had worked there, and she'd been a cutter there, and all the kids were asleep. I used to sit up in the window and at night, and as I say, when everyone was asleep, and when I went there to work during Clash by Night, I stood there and I wanted to see back to see if I could see the orphanage, but you can't. It's too many sound stages in the way, and office buildings and homes. Oh, by the way, I slept in a room with 27 beds because they say some other number. I know when I read it. Because you had to work your way to the honor bed. You start with 1, well, really the 27th bed, and you had to work your way down and around, and then you could work yourself into the other dormitory, which had fewer beds, but I got there once, but once I was putting on my shoes, and the matron said, "Go downstairs, I'm tying my shoe." She says, "Back to the 27th bed." Well, we lived there. We all had jobs. I had different jobs. I worked for a while. Oh, we'd get up at 6 in the morning, and we did our work before we went to a public school. It's very, well, it's bad to have children from an institution like that go to a public school, because in the public school the kids say, "Oh, they're from the home. They're from the home." Orphans. And, you know, and you feel, I always tried to go around as if I were one of the other kids, you know, and we all were ashamed, you know, to have been from the orphan's home. Well, I was very tall and thin. I was taller than I was as tall as I am now. And very, very thin. At 11, things changed. But, and I never grew any taller, but they always said, "Oh, she's going to be a very tall girl." Oh, in fact, when I was first going, when I first went to the orphanage, and they pulled me in, you know, they took one arm here, and they pulled me in, I kept crying, screaming, "I'm not an orphan." And then there was a dining room straight ahead, and there these 100 kids sitting there eating at 5 o'clock, and then a child, you're ashamed to cry in front of other children. So I stopped right away, and then the children filed out and went to they were sitting on the porch after dinner. They usually did that on the girls' side, and they all thought I was at least 14, because I was so tall. They thought I was going to be in the ad girls, whoever they were. Well, anything tasted good to me. I always, when I was a child, I ate everything, because families that I lived with, they said they never saw a child who would eat everything. I'd eat anything. Everything. Oh, there was one other family I stayed with for a short time, but it was only for about 3 weeks. I forgot to mention. Makes 11. I liked singing, athletics, English. I hated arithmetic. I never had my mind on it. I was always dreaming out the window. And then, too, another thing people would remark, not only that I would eat everything, but I never complained when I went to bed. I would even say, I think I'll go to bed now. They say, well, that's very unusual, because children, they say, no, I don't want to go to bed. But what I would do would be to go in my room and, except at the orphan's home, was different. But otherwise, I would go in my room, and if I had seen a movie, I would act out every part. Only I would act out before that happened, or after, and I would act out all the parts, the men as well as the women. That's what I'd be doing, standing up on my bed, being taller, and even just the feeling, what he said and what she said, and what he felt and she felt, and usually be sad.
How tall are you, Karen? 5'6"?
5'6", exactly. First time was at the orphanage, and then later in my teens I stuttered, and I was they elected me secretary of the English class. No, secretary of the minutes of the English class, whatever you call it. And then I say, minutes of the last meeting. I'm like a Oh, it's terrible. When? I don't know. Let's see, I had the orphanage, and after I left, I guess, and then when I was about 13, I took it up again. It just, I don't know how it happened. I just stuttered. Sometimes if I'm very nervous or excited or something, I stutter. In fact, one time they were doing I had a small part in the movie, and the assistant director came in and yelled at me. Oh, he talked awful. And and so I, when I got into the scene, instead of my lines, I woo, 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 and the director came up, he was furious. He says, you don't stutter. I said, that's what you think. Oh, it's painful. Oh, God. Well, when I went to live with a woman, her name is Mrs. E. period, Anna Lauer, and I used to do the dishes in the evening and whistling, and she said, I never heard a child sing so much. So I did it during that period. I liked being with her, staying with her. I always kept in touch with her. I loved her very dearly. And then I adored her. Well, they used to call me the mouse, because I I never said anything, and I was quiet most of the time, except with other children. I had imagination. Other children liked to play with me because I could think of things. You know, I'd say, now we're going to have a murder, then a divorce, and then they say, how do you think? I said, I don't know. So other children, you know, I could be myself with other children, but with grown-ups, I was always very quiet. Went around about doing my work, you know, whatever I had to do. Oh no, okay.
How did that happen?
I don't want to say too much. Well, Grace arranged it. She and her husband were going to West Virginia, and they were going to put me in a home, or, you know, like I'd been before, or I could marry this boy who was 21 at the time. So I married. Oh no. I was 15 turning 16. When marriage took place, I was just turned 16. In the state of California, you can marry at 16, a girl. But it was arranged when I was 15. No, not at all. Then he was drafted to go into the army, but instead he went to the Merchant Marine. Yes, towards the end of the war, I divorced him. And I divorced him, no, I was 20. I went to Las Vegas to divorce him.
I don't know what
If they let you do one, they let you do the other. Well, how does it feel being yourself? That's exactly how I feel. I don't know. One time a very wonderful director, Kazan, said I had no ambition. That was my problem, my trouble. But I would like very much to be a fine actress, a true actress, that's what I mean by fine, a real actress. I would like to be happy, but who's happy? I think trying to be happy is almost as difficult as trying to be a good actress. You have to work at both of them. Well, I think comedy is harder for me. I mean, it's just harder to act comedy, I think. For me, it seems that way. But I would like a variety of parts, you know. Dramatic, sometimes comedy. Not musical too much because I never studied it. I always wanted to, but I never did, and it's very difficult. And after you've finished it, they say, oh, you just did it like that, and really all you do is so much.
True. It looks so easy.
It looks easy. It looks like you just walk through it. And I've never studied that, either singing or dancing. Really. It is. It takes its toll. I think an artist apologize to you, but to them I apologize. Sometimes, you know, the work is so, you know, you try to be true, and you feel sometimes it's on the verge of a kind of craziness, but it isn't really craziness. It's really getting the truest part of yourself out, and it's very hard, you know. I mean, it's not easy, let's say. And yet it can be very simple at the same time. Being an artist, because sometimes you think, oh, well, all I have to do is true, but sometimes it doesn't come so easily. Well, I always have a secret feeling that I'm really a fake or something, or phony. You know how people feel about themselves. They have something secret they feel about themselves. I always feel that. I know my teacher says, why do you feel that about yourself? And then he starts to say, but you're a human being. I said, yes, I am. I said, but I feel like I have to be more. He says, no. He says, you start with yourself, Lee Strasberg. I think probably he changed my life more than any other human being that I've met, including everyone. Because when I started to work with him, I would sort of assume something. And he says, what are you doing? I said, well, I have to get into the part. He says, no, but you're a human being, so you start with yourself. I said, but with me? He said, yes, with you. So, in a way, if you can concentrate correctly, I don't mean deep thinking where you know, pounding the skull, but if you can just concentrate simply, that's what I mean about being easy. Anyway, he helped me a great deal. I have a hard time at it. I don't know. I might leave something out, but I won't put anything else in extra. I might leave something out because to my benefit or somebody else's benefit, hurt people or hurt myself sometimes, you know. We all want to protect ourselves also. So I might leave something out, but I don't think I don't think I lie. At least if I would try, it's difficult. But I do want to be wonderful, you know. Yeah. When I walked out of 20th Century Fox and I went to New York and I stayed for I don't know how many months, 15 months, 13 months, I don't know how many months. And the lawyer, you know, he said, he was telling me about my tax deductions, my I don't know what, and about, the lawyer for 20th Century Fox. And I said, I don't know about that. I only know I want to be wonderful. Because you say that to a corporation lawyer, he thinks you're mad. And that's at the bottom of everything, you know, that I do want.
People were making them up. It's not true. There was nobody there that smart.
They never made them up.
And they're often more advanced by them, horrified.
Yeah, like, you know, they ask you questions like, just an example, what do you wear to bed? You wear a pajama top, the bottoms of the pajamas, or the nightgown, or what kind of... So I said, Chanel No. 5, because it's the truth. And yet I don't want to say nude, you know, but it's the truth. Or, I don't know, all of those things come from the truth. If you ever get any of those things you want to ask, what does it mean, I'll tell you where the truth comes from, or what it does mean. Because as I say, I leave things out. I don't elaborate sometimes. But it'll be from the truth. Because otherwise, it's hard to know where to start if you don't start with the truth. Okay, here, I get up early in the morning. I jump into my clothes, get my belongings together, get in the car, and I have a driver. He brings me to the studio. Then I have somebody waiting here who makes my breakfast. Then they start with the hair and the makeup, and I eat while they're doing my hair. And then they leave it that way while the makeup man, he comes in, he does the makeup. And then they comb out the hair later. And they put on the body makeup and then the clothes. I don't like to rush this process because I find if I rush, I'm very tired. by the time I have to do a scene, I'm all worn out from rushing through the hair and the makeup and the clothes. So I like to do it leisurely, like I like to dress when I go out in the evening. I love to dress leisurely. I like to soak in the tub, then leisurely. I like music. I think that we're rushing too much nowadays. That's why people get nervous. Well, I don't think I'm late all the time, but maybe it is because I can't go as fast as other people. You know, people that get in automobiles, they run into each other because they never stop. They're going like that, and I don't think that mankind, it's intended for them to go like that. They're not supposed to be like machines. And I think you get more done the other way, by doing it more sensibly, more leisurely. Mr. Cukor on this film has been very wonderful to me, in as much as he lets me come in an hour later than I would usually come in. So it helps because I'm fresher at the end of the day. It helps. He says he does it for my work, and I think it's so. I think actors in movies work too long hours. The hours are too long. Always, nearly always. Sometimes I feel a doom set over me. Just as I'm walking on the stage, it's just like a doom sets on me. I don't know why, but I get over it sometimes. Sometimes it lasts all day. I want to do my best, the best that I can do in that moment. When the camera starts until it stops. That moment I want to be perfect. As perfect as I can make it. I used to go to movies on Saturday night when, for instance, when I worked in a factory, and that was my only time that I could enjoy myself, really, that I really relaxed and enjoyed. And this is on tape. We're trying to think. Excuse us. And so I used to be very disappointed if I went to a movie, because I waited all week to go to the movie. And I worked hard for the money that I spent. And if I went to a movie and it was a bad movie, or I thought people didn't do their best, kind of did it sloppy or something, I really was mad, angry when I left, because then I didn't have anything to go on for a whole week. I'd wait for another week. So I always feel that I work for the ones who work hard, and they go to the box office and put down their money and they want to be entertained, or I always feel I do it for them. But I do care because I know how the others feel. They've worked hard all week. And my favorite stars then? Oh, I liked anybody who was good. Sometimes they'd be good, sometimes they wouldn't, depend. Oh, well, that was when I was very small. That's when I was 7 years old. When I was 7 years old, my favorite was Jean Harlow. And the reason why she was my favorite, because she had white hair, and I had white hair. And they used to call me towhead. I don't know how you'd say it in French, but it was white hair instead. And I dreamed of having golden hair, but instead mine was white. And so when she had white hair, I felt sort of close to her, because she had white hair, I had white hair. And Clark Gable, I'm sure he won't mind if I say it, because in a Freudian sense, it's supposed to be very good. I used to always think of him as my father. I pretended that he was my father. I never pretended anyone was my mother. I don't know why. But I always pretended he was my father. I was just 7 years old, and he was a very young man, and I thought that's how I wanted my father to look. Love? Yes. I think it's a rare thing, and not to be discounted at all, not to be pushed away in a corner. I find that's why I like poetry, I think, also. They don't discount it. They take it for its worth, its value. It's one of the most important things that ever happens to us. I think the most important thing. I think love and work are the only things that really happen to us. And everything else is just, doesn't really matter. And I think one without the other isn't so good. I think they both need, I don't know. I'm only 34, I have a few years to go yet. But I think it's the most important thing. Because even work is a kind of love. It's something that you love to do. Even workers, factory workers, I used to take a pride in the way that I would do it. Even though I did it very fast, I would take a pride in the fact that I would do it exactly perfect as I could, So I think that, well, I guess I'm a little impetuous. Paula says. Exclusive. I think I am, because I have very few friends, but not to be exclusive. It's just that I like people, but for friends, I like few people. A few people, I guess you call it.
Josie Matthew.
Well, I met him the year he retired. He had already retired. And I saw him for about a year and a half, 2 years, and we married in San Francisco. And his background, his family, they were immigrants, and they had a very difficult time. And when he was young, he had a very difficult time. The only thing, he was a wonderful athlete, and he could hit a baseball. Anything thrown his direction, he could hit. So he understood some things about me, and I understood some things about him, and we based our marriage on it. And I say some things. Well, I don't want to say that. I just say we understood some things about each other. He has a very sensitive nature in many respects. One thinks of an athlete as being, I don't know, not having that, but they do. Our marriage wasn't a happy one. It ended in 9 months, unfortunately. I don't know what else to say. Do I feel happy in life? Let's see. Let's say I hope I'm finding happiness. Right? Well, for me, if I can realize certain things in my work, I come the closest to being happy, and I can say that also about my life. Well, it only happens, I think, in moments, sometimes when I'm working, and I'll be able to fulfill a scene truthfully, and then I think I'm the happiest. Well, I find it very stimulating to keep studying and working, but I'm not just generally happy. If I'm generally anything, I guess I'm generally miserable. I don't know.
Fine.
Sometimes, I think.
Do you like...
I don't know. I think sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Which is natural, I guess, for everyone. I would like to be more sociable than I am. On some days. Well, sometimes I'll chat when I'm not pleased, but sometimes the work itself requires more, that I'm quiet and to myself more. And other days, like doing a musical number, I try not to get too, I like to be more outgoing because that's what I have to express, and so I try to keep it general. I try to. Even if I feel like it or not, I'll try to make the effort to make contact with people around me. Yes, because I could easily be alone. It doesn't bother me to be alone. Some people I know, they don't like to be alone. I don't mind it. I need it as a rest, and yeah, it kind of refreshes myself. Yeah. And a rest. Yes, I think there's two things in human beings that they, as I think there is in myself, that they want to be alone, but they also want to be together. You know? Because I think I have also a gay side to me, also a sad side. And I think that's the way with people also. But there is something in people they need solitude for a while. Yes, it was. He came with Elia Kazan on the set of a picture called Young as You Feel. And as he describes it, I was crying when he met me. A friend of mine had died, and anyway, Kazan came over and he said he was very sorry, and I burst into tears. We had Arthur with him, and so even though I was in tears, he introduced me to Arthur. So I'd forgotten, but he said I was crying when I, in tears, weeping, when he met me. Then I didn't see him for about 4 years. I used to think that maybe he might see me in a movie. For instance, there'd be 2 pictures playing. They used to have it. I thought, and I might be in the other movie. He'd see me, and I'd want to do my best. Because he said that he thought that I should act on the stage. And people who were around heard him say it. They laughed. But he said, no, I'm very serious.
At that time, I mean.
That was in 1950.
In 1950.
Does one ever know that? I mean, I know certain qualities that I remembered at the time, but I don't know exactly what... I think that's mysterious. No, I can't say he gave me a feeling of security. There wasn't any reason for him to, really, except he treated me as a human being, and he was a very sensitive human being, and treated me as a sensitive person also. I don't know how to describe it.
No, of course it's very difficult.
Let's talk about the end of her life. What was that like to find out?
It was very sad. I was in New York. July 18th, we finished working together. I went to New York. I was doing a big series with a big layout with a cover for a magazine called Cosmopolitan magazine. Also, we had done this book together. I had put it all together. And on a Friday afternoon, I was in my office at the Sunday newspapers. I was a correspondent. And I get a phone call, and Marilyn Monroe is calling. This is Friday, August 4th. August 3rd, I guess, yeah. And 1962. And she wants to know how things are going. I said, fine, everything looks great. The book, I've got it all together. And she says, I've got to see you. It's very important. I says, I'm trying to put everything together, Marilyn. George, she said, it's very important. There are many things we have to talk about, and there's some things that are very, very shocking that you must know about. You must come out. She sounded very sad. I said, if you feel it's that urgent, then I'll come out. This is Friday. I'll try to get out there Monday. I'll fly out Monday. And so that weekend, I went to the country. And Sunday morning with my brother-in-law, we went to a little store to get some rolls and things. And I sat in the car listening to the radio music. And my brother-in-law went in to buy some things, and he comes running out, and he says, did you hear it on the radio? I said, what? I said, I didn't hear it. It was music. He says, I just heard on the radio in the shop, Marilyn Monroe is dead. And I turned white. I said, I can't believe it. I'm supposed to leave Monday to see her. I said, is this a joke? It's not nice to make jokes like that. He says, I swear it's not a joke. So I got in the car and I left. And I went back to New York City to my apartment. It was about 100 miles away. I was living on Sutton Place then, and I get there and the doorman says to me, there's some press people been asking about you. And he said, I told him you're not here. So I said, all right, good. So I went up to my apartment, the phone's ringing and everything. I put on the TV and the radio, and everything is Marilyn Monroe is dead. And the phone rings, it's Associated Press, a big agency wanting a statement. And I said, look, I just got here. Give me a chance to get my breath. I promise I'll talk to you, but not right now. My mind is not here, you know. So I tried to get some sleep that night. I couldn't sleep. In the morning I went to my office. And
what was the sense of shock? Describe the shock. Who?
I turned white. I couldn't believe it, that she's dead. Here, she's expecting me Monday morning. Monday, sometime Monday. I was going to leave Monday.
Right.
And I can't, well, it can't be. I mean, how could she be dead? They didn't know. They just found her dead, that's all. Of course, the details didn't come out then about the housekeeper and, you know, all that.
What did you lose?
What did I lose? I lost a friend, a dear friend, when I lost her. And to this day, I still think about her. I loved her. I mean, she was a very sweet person, and she was very kind. And she said, we do this book together, and if anything should ever happen to me, I'm going to count on you, you know, to see that everything is done the way we agreed.
And what did the world lose?
The world lost a very sweet person that made them happy, that brought joy for a few hours when they went into a dark theater to watch her films. And they lost a very kind person, and a person that loved everybody and had no hatred for anyone. She didn't hate her husbands. She loved them, but the frustration was that she couldn't get them to understand her.